Welcome to episode 3.
Metal and Mash.
Metal and Mash episode 3, man. Today, we are going to take a dive into Adam's journey. Why does Adam love metal, and 5 of his favorite songs that got him there. So, for this special occasion, Adam, what are we drinking today?
Thank you, Aaron. So Aaron, who's the master producer of this whole process, we chatted about just different episode ideas. And one of my favorite ideas came out was I want to do Aaron's journey. I want to do my journey. And so when Aaron said, well, let's do your journey first, I thought, well, the 5 songs that really get me going might as well be coupled with the whiskey that really pulled me out of, I have a desire to maybe not think straight, to I want to appreciate this.
Yeah.
My wife said, you know what, you need friends and you need a hobby. So I'm like, well, I'm going to hang out with Aaron more and I'm going to start drinking. Those two aren't necessarily mutually exclusive, but so my wife wanted me to get a bar. So I was asking around, asking people that I knew, and they're like, what would you get for a bourbon? If you could only have one bourbon on your bar for a home bar, what would you get? And undoubtedly, I heard multiple people say Woodford Reserve, and several people said Double Oaked.
I love Woodford Reserve.
So Woodford Reserve, I believe 1800s, early 1800s, they started their distillery. And so Double Oaked means that it's in 2 barrels. So this is I believe 90.4 proof. So we're looking at 45.2% alcohol. So you have what's called a charred barrel and a toasted barrel. A charred barrel is pretty much what all bourbons are. This one happens to be a 72% corn, 18% rye, 10% malted barley. What they do is they char the barrels first, and charring typically means that you're about 600 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's charred for 25 to 50 seconds. And the goal is when they char the barrel, what it does is it turns a lot of the sugars that are in wood, cellulose, and all these other organic products, and it turns them into a sugar. And that's what helps draw the vanilla and the caramel flavors into the whiskey, and that's what makes it different than like a vodka or a tequila. Right? Right. So the char is going to be the first level. Then toasted barrels, what you're going to see is a lower temperature, around 500, 550 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's done for upwards of 10 minutes. And it's a lighter, so it's not going to cause as much color, but it's going to have a different layer of flavor profile. So being a double oaked means it sat in one barrel for a period of time, and then they transferred it over into a second barrel to then give it a different layer of flavor. So that's what we're looking at here.
That's what we're looking at today.
And you can see, look at the dark.
It is very dark.
It's very dark. And it's, been sitting out for 10 minutes or so. And this is the first
smell this.
This is the first bourbon that I kind of developed my palate for. So this is kind of like, I wouldn't say the gold standard for me, but it's definitely one that I compare everything to.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Great bottle. I've enjoyed it. And actually,
that's how I always did with beer. Heineken was the one that I compared everything to.
I mean, it's good to have a comparison. And I think that that's also what we're going to be doing with these music selections for me today, and then for you later, where we're going to say, hey, do I compare music that I love now to the stuff that got me here?
Well, on from the nerdy stuff. Let's talk metal and taste this drink.
And man, that is just tasty. And I just got my brother, who I haven't seen in a year or so. Isn't that good?
I love regular Woodford Reserve, but this is delicious.
It's just got extra.
It is something extra for sure. Guys, go pick up a bottle of that. Now let's get into your playlist of what got you to the metal mecca that you love these days. Tell me about this first track.
This first track.
You don't have to tell me much. I already know about this track.
You know this track.
I know this track well. It also happens to be my wife's favorite Metallica song.
Are you kidding me? Well, that's spectacular.
I told her you guys had something in common.
Uh-oh. So she's either going to like that or resent it. I don't know. I love me some Tiffany, though. She's good people. So The God That Failed, Metallica.
Yes.
Obviously not their first album, and not the first Metallica song I've ever heard or loved. But when we were talking about our journey and things that just got us into metal, I'll tell you what, that bass, this is what really brought me into the depth of what metal could be in that beginning portion.
But one of the things that I always loved about this, and I've always thought this song was underrated as hell. Like, it's not a song that you hear frequently, like in their live sets or anything like that. So like the chance to hear it, I actually got the chance to hear them play it live when I went to the Orion Music and More Festival. Shout out to my dudes that went with me in 2011, I believe. We went to Atlantic City and they played the Black Album front to back.
Oh man, I'll bet that was amazing.
It was real cool, and to have the experience to actually hear this song live was incredible. I've always loved this song, special place in my heart. Aside from tracks like Sad But True and things like that, this is one of the heaviest songs they've ever done, in my opinion. A lot of people associate Metallica heavy with their being fast and whatnot.
Right.
No, it's that big cymbal.
And it hits.
Bars, dude.
It hits hard. And that's
Listen,
something
I can gush over me some Metallica.
Oh, I know. That's one of your major stories for sure.
And we'll get to that for sure.
We will.
God.
Well, and I don't think that there's very many metalheads out there that can't say that there's at least one Metallica track.
Everybody has at least one song.
Yeah.
Even if they're the same guy that's talking shit about them
Right.
on the internet.
Yeah, making trash talk about poor Lars,
Yeah.
who actually can drum.
He can still drum, and he's 65 for God's sake.
Right. Let him be a drummer. And you're probably also low-key listening to Nickelback and liking it.
That's me. That's a dig on me.
I like Nickelback too. I'm not gonna lie. I wouldn't put him in the heavy category, but I still like him.
Dude,
These are just what you believe.
one of the things I don't know, do you know this? If you listen closely, you can hear him do a shotgun
Yeah, I did not.
when they do that. So pay attention to the next couple of rounds when they do that. In the studio, he used a shotgun. He went
Really?
and clicked that. Yeah.
I love that tidbit.
Because they did a lot of, throughout this record, they did a lot of little overdub tones and sounds. And if you just pay attention closely, you can hear it. Great solo. Nothing crazy. Just Kirk being loose, I think. I think he was just really loose on this record, and it just sort of opened him up into, what most people would say a lot of people have to take issue with his bluesier style. And look, he proved that he's a virtuoso on the first few records.
Absolutely.
The guy was a genius. And so he just wanted to lay back, and I think he did just that. Like these are powerful solos. I still sing along with these solos, just like many other Metallica people, because they just resonate.
Yeah.
Gets me going, dude. It gets me going.
Dude, that makes me happy knowing that
Cheers.
something I chose makes you that stoked.
Love that drum beat.
Well, and I'm not going to lie. There was definitely a time in my younger years where shockism was a big part, which I think is a pretty strong trait of any teenager.
Sure.
But being in a small town, it was very, shall we say, church-based. Nice.
God, what a riff.
I mean, you're going to see a theme with all the songs I chose today that probably would make a lot of people go, are you paying rent on a condo in hell? Maybe.
Yeah, well.
So, yeah.
Every once in a while, I still just go back through the Black Album in my car, and I'll be by myself, and I'll just blast it.
Yeah.
And I just love every minute of it.
You can play the whole thing straight through, and there's no skip.
I like this drum beat right here, where he's got the feet going with the drums. Dude, Lars was a king, dude.
He was, and he used a lot of those low toms as a great fill, and he could just thrive off of that.
Those drums.
Yes. Yes. Dude, I was hanging out with my brothers this weekend, which I have physically hung out with them in a while. And you text me and told me about this episode. So, I'm the oldest. I drove to school. I had my license when I was 14 years old. Sure. And my brothers had to ride with me to school. Otherwise, they had to go on the bus. So they're like, yeah, I'm going to go with our bigger brother. Well, I was a weird brother because I let them choose music to listen to, too. We had that CD player that plugged into the tape deck. Yep. And it was perfect distance. 13 miles. Everybody gets to choose one song. So they heard a lot of metal when metal was necessarily not their thing. And so I asked him, I was like, hey, my friend who we're doing this YouTube channel with wants me to choose 5 songs and so it was cool to have their feedback on things that I forced them to listen to.
Yeah, they remembered some of your tracks.
And so, I mean, these 5, it was not easy. This was not an easy task.
I don't think it ever really is to try to choose 5 songs or, even 5 bands that could kind of get you where you are. But
right.
I mean,
because I easily could have chosen 5 songs from one band.
Oh yeah,
easily.
Absolutely.
But I definitely wanted to be diverse. So this next song, weirdly, before we started this, you kind of informed me that we actually had a lap overlap.
Absolutely, dude.
So this song, this showed me guitar. This is where I felt a connection to guitar, just power. Just made you this song. When we played basketball in high school, the seniors got to choose a song, a playlist, if you will, that they went out and warmed up to. And this was the top of the list when I became a senior that I wanted everybody to hear in the gym and just freak out over.
No
doubt. We've got Becoming by Pantera.
Oh, dude. We were listening to this shit when we were kids, man.
This song just will never get old.
Woo, boy. Pantera gets me every time.
Every time.
I remember when I went to see them back in the fall, my cousin Richard sitting beside me. He taps me on the shoulder. He's like, man, is your neck okay? Like, you're really going hard. I was like, dude, I haven't heard these songs live in 25 years. I am going hard.
Yeah. I'll worry about regret later.
Yeah. I mean, I was sore for like 5 days, but I don't care, dude. It was perfect. So, a cool thing about that sound.
Yeah. Which is iconic.
When they did that live, Dime's guitar tech, his name is Grady, he would control Dime's foot switches for him. So Dime was always, he's Dime, so he got wasted before they played. And so he's playing these riffs. Grady would control all the nuances in the background, so he didn't have to do it. And so the whole time, Grady's just back there going, whew, whew. Could you imagine having Grady's gig? I mean, it's just what a time. Like, so we grew up watching a lot of Pantera Vulgar videos. Did you ever watch those?
Absolutely.
So the Vulgar videos changed all of us, man. Like, we all wanted to do that, We wanted to make Vulgar videos, So we would listen to all this crazy metal and try to replicate things that we saw in the Vulgar videos. And there's still VHSs out there.
I hope one day I'm blessed with getting to watch that.
I have one here. Actually.
Guess what we're doing later.
But man,
what
a time. So
Dimebag actually briefly went to school at Cheyenne Central in Wyoming. Very briefly, and this ended up their claim, obviously very Texas. That's kind of their claim, him and his brother Vinny. But yeah, no, he was in Cheyenne for a little bit and did some talent shows and stuff, and so it even puts it a little bit more towards my heart. But this, he just nails it.
Dude, Dime, dude. There was something so special about Dimebag Darrell. Nobody's ever been able to truly replicate what he can do. There are people who can play his stuff, and I've done a solo or two of Dime. Dude, his note choices and just the innate groove in his hands was something so special.
Yeah.
And he touched multiple generations of metalheads.
Yes, he has.
And many of us refer to him, rightfully so, as Saint Dime for a reason.
I mean, it's appropriate for sure.
And he comes from the Kiss, Van Halen. Those were his people. So he's referred to Saint Dime, whereas you have King Edward. King Edward Van Halen.
Yep.
And then Vinny. All hail St. Vincent.
Absolutely.
Dude, those drums.
Yes.
When I was growing up, there was nothing cooler than that fucking song, dude.
I mean, so when we drove to that Morbid Angel show, and you thankfully you let me run the stereo, because you were driving, and I mean we were going through a lot of different stuff, and then I remember I put this song on, and I think if those speakers could have blown, they would have, because you cranked it up. Bevar in the back, and we were just going to town, and I'm sure people drove by us. We're driving a minivan and just headbanging like nobody's business.
I know.
So great.
Between me and Bevar ourselves, we bought at least 5 or 6 copies of Far Beyond Driven.
I mean, I had one that wore out for sure. I still have it because it's but I end up having to buy another one.
I buy more. I know that I've had 3 copies of it at least.
Yeah.
And I've got I think I have actually a vinyl with that song on it.
Well, I think you should, because I mean vinyl is making a comeback. It's pretty big deal now.
So the next track on your list is?
So we've got Tool, which I know that there's a thing as a Tool train, and probably lovingly I'm going to say this, some of the most annoying ass fans ever, because they will just they'll beat people down to probably not even liking Tool because they are just adamant about how amazing they are. I love them. I think they are amazing. Wearing their shirt, went to their recent show. But I also recognize...
they were in Charleston, right?
They were in Charleston.
Yeah.
West Virginia, of all places. Yeah. Someone told me, hey, you want to go to the Charleston show? I was like, yeah, but I don't want to drive all the way to South Carolina there. And they're like, no, dude, they're coming to West Virginia. I was wow. Yeah. And they put on a stellar show. So, but this is back in the day. So this is their second album, Undertow. And again, the bass. So this was the BMG Columbia House days. I'm out in the middle of BFE, Wyoming.
I remember those.
They're, and you said this our last episode. If the cover art doesn't get you, you may not even give it a try.
Sure. Yeah.
This album cover was just awkward, weird enough, almost replicating that of a rib cage. I just thought it was stellar. And so, I ended up getting the album because it was a buy one, get 12 free or whatever. And I fell in love with this whole album. And, Sober, probably one of their most popular songs. I love that song, but this song...
This is the Undertow record.
This is the Undertow record.
Okay.
And Swamp Song's a 6th song on the track. And I just fell in love with this song. That bass at the beginning. And Maynard probably can carry one of the longest clean screams ever. And he does have really the 10-15 second scream in this song, and just I like the deep resonance bass.
Now Tool is not a band that I can provide a whole lot on, because aside from a compilation disc that I made about 15 years ago,
right,
they never grabbed me.
And that's fair. And
I can jam with this. Like, this is okay.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I never got... It was like, when I was growing up, it was either you were a diehard Tool fan or you didn't listen to them at all.
Right.
And I just went the other direction.
Yeah. Well, and
I don't know why.
And I remember
all my friends love Tool.
Well, and I remember chatting with you guys in the vehicle about this, and there were those fans that did push people away, because it's like you either have to love them and embrace them for everything, or you're a poser.
They're fanatical.
Right.
No offense. I mean, I'm fanatical about bands that I love.
Right.
You know what I mean? But yeah, it was weird to me. I don't know. It was just something. Maybe it was because the music didn't hit me enough. And then the combination of the fanatical fan that was like,
yeah,
what are you listening to? This is not for me. But I don't mind this. Like, when I actually take a second to listen to some of this stuff. And when they put out their most recent record, Fear Inoculum,
yeah,
I was actually jogging one day and decided to listen to that record. And I think I was texting you while I was actually running. I was like, man, I don't know, man. I don't think this is for me,
Well,
but I tried it.
Sure, I mean? And I think that's all you can do. It's no different than giving a good whiskey a try, and you're like, that's not my profile.
Yeah.
But also, you've told me in the past that you like a 2, 3, 4 minute hard hit song and be done.
Yeah.
And that was this era. I mean, they were 5 and 6 minute songs, but their new album, you're looking at 9 to 13 minute songs.
Yeah.
And if that's not your flavor, it's hard to get into a 13 minute song.
Someone once told me to go check out an album of theirs called Opiate.
which is their first album.
That if I listened to Opiate, that I was going to be a big fan. That didn't work for me. But what did work, and what got me to make that compilation record, was the Anemia record.
Right.
There's some shit on there that I can dig.
Well, that's their... So this is... Anemia was really kind of like their industrial to prog transition, and they were heavy on that album. This album is definitely not the heaviest album, but I love the... I mean, it's really intense. Suffocate. Why don't you get... I mean, this is... Their messages are really deep. Maynard's a brilliant man. And
I've listened to podcasts with him talking like he's like a wine connoisseur.
yeah, he's got a winery in Arizona.
He seems like a really good dude, like
Right.
somebody I would enjoy hanging out with.
He's smart. And Danny Carey is their drummer, and he's traveled to all over African tribes, Brazilian tribes to learn drumming techniques that are, just way beyond. And his polyrhythm,
Different.
he is different.
And he's influenced a lot of people.
He has. He's a giant man.
Yeah.
And he's 62 years old, and he just
And he's pretty
still
funny,
tears
too.
it up.
I don't know if you saw this, but I saw when the Foo Fighters were announcing their new drummer, he was part of that commercial, and it was really funny because they were just bringing in random drummers, like Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers was there,
Right.
And then Danny Carey, and then maybe there was somebody else, and then all of a sudden their new drummer comes out of nowhere, is like, "Hey, are we gonna play some music yet, or what?"
Right. That's
So
awesome.
you should check that out. That's pretty funny. And they're like, "Yeah, man, yeah, I can play." Because there was so much speculation of who was going to be the new drummer. Which, I mean, honestly, I could do a whole record on the Foo Fighters, or a whole podcast on the Foo Fighters too. Because even though they're not metal, they have moments.
Right. They can have some pretty good riffs.
One thing I did always appreciate about Tool is, and everything that I heard about them, from them, the production quality was always killer.
Yeah.
Even on their earlier records, sometimes it takes a lot of evolution in albums to come along for production quality, and I always found that very prominent in thrash metal. A lot of early thrash metal records, they sounded terrible, but as the bands progressed, the production would get better and better and better.
Right. So they sounded better.
Tool never had that problem.
No.
They always sounded great.
Right. Even
So
that first,
I'll give them that.
Even that first Opiate album, where two of their songs are live. The live songs even sound good,
Yeah.
which is part of the reason why I tend to never go for a live track or live album, because most of the time I think that it just sounds like I'm typically not attracted to.
Yeah, no, I understand.
But then you have that Tool song where they're like, "Get that Bob Marley wannabe motherfucker out of here." I mean, that's just a great beginning to a song. And
Tool, man.
yeah, and I don't know, when he made fun of Justin Bieber said, "Oh, hey, I'm a Tool fan," and Maynard says, "Bummer," on Twitter. And then Danny Carey had to come back later that day and say, "We appreciate all Tool fans."
Of course.
I mean, it's just freaking awesome.
So next up on your list.
Oh, man, this band, Machine Head.
Yes.
Machine Head is... I think that this is where I started branching out. I mean, obviously Pantera's heavy. But Machine Head really just introduced me to this broad, like, here's this thrash groove combo that just...
They definitely did some different stuff.
Oh, man, and that first album, man. And so, Davidian, I think, was your big song from that album, which is great. It's a great way to start the CD. But this, Death Church, this always hit me hard. And again, I think it was just living in a kind of a small religious community, and I'm like, are we really?
Yeah.
This I blare this with my windows down, driving under the speed limit in a 25-mile-an-hour zone through town just to make everybody mad.
I love that. I'm a huge Machine Head fan too, man. I've been a Machine Head fan for many years. And one of the things that really got me into Machine Head was it's the end of a song called The Front Lines.
Absolutely.
It's on their second record. And once I heard that, I started really taking a deep dive. And one thing I noticed when I went through this list of songs, it starts out with these you got the harmonics in the background,
Yeah.
and the 2-note thing there, and that's sort of like Rob Flynn's calling card.
It
He
is.
He has the power to make a lot of ambience out of just a couple of notes or a couple of noises.
Yeah.
And I always found that to be kind of cool about Rob Flynn.
Yeah.
Now, Rob Flynn, obviously from the Bay Area, he grew up in the old school thrash scene, was the guitar player for Violence, and just killer dude. Like, and I think like when he branched off and started Machine Head, it was the right time. What is this record? 94?
Yeah, somewhere around there for
93,
sure.
somewhere
Yeah.
around there.
I think like out freshman high school. So,
the height of popularity for Pantera, Metallica, they were doing Sepultura.
Yep.
So all of those bands, and then boom, here's this Bay Area band that bringing in this groove mixed with the thrash.
yeah.
I love Machine Head.
Well, and I can't help it. You just like you catch it.
Yeah, dude.
It's an easy one to get into.
Yeah, and they're just grooving on an open note.
Yeah.
And then they play a little open notes.
Yeah.
Open. And one of the things I fell in love with about Machine Head, which plays over into my tone for my guitars, Rob Flynn, huge 5150 guy.
Oh, yeah.
5150 amps came out in '92, and I still use a 5150. So
Yeah.
I got my first 5150 in 2003, and that was right before Machine Head released their album Through the Ashes of Empires. And he, to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, Rob Flynn and Machine Head fans out there, he's only used 5150 albums or amps through all the records.
Well, that's awesome.
And so, and you can tell that there's really no difference. There's minor nuances in the chain. Maybe he got a different model here and there, but he's a 5150 guy, and so am I, man. I've tried a couple other amps, the Marshalls, the Masons, and things of that sort, but I always go back to a 5150.
So there's a song by Stone Sour called 5150, and that makes me wonder, is that what they're singing
Yeah.
about in that
Well, maybe
track?
not about the amp, but it's probably a tribute.
Okay.
5150 is the amp line that Eddie Van Halen created in the
Okay.
early 90s. And
All
it's probably, if I would have to guess, maybe an homage to Ed. Later on in the lineage of the 5150, they changed to the 6505. And that was just saying, PV started in 65 and it ended in 05. So they had, and then that's when the 5150 brand
Okay.
ended.
Yeah.
Was in 05. So then Ed went to Fender. So my actual 5150 is a Fender product, but I love that sound.
Yeah.
That guitar tone is.
Well, I mean, it
sweet.
obviously has it really pulls in people who like a specific metal tone.
Yeah.
And so you're going to see that,
Yeah, I
different-
think a lot of bands at the time and once bands like Machine Head came out using this amp, they were trying 5150s. Like they were all like, I've seen, even Metallica is notorious for using Mesa. Excuse me. I've seen a couple live videos where they've had some 5150s in the background because they were, you try it out because
Right.
it sounds great.
It sounds great.
Does it work for you? And that's what I found that worked for me. Like it was just whatever it is. Every iteration of 5150 I've had has just been stunning.
Love that. Their guitar solos always hit, man.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Logan Nader back in the day, man. And I think briefly he joined the band for a live release a couple of years ago, maybe. They did like a Burn My Eyes tribute or something, and all the original guys, Chris Contos and Logan Nader and all those guys came in. Good times. I think they maybe did it like live over Facebook or something.
Oh,
Maybe
wow.
YouTube or something.
Sure.
It's really cool. If you're a Machine Head fan, go check that out. I love
Absolutely.
Machine Head. The funny thing is, it's like a lot of my friends got into Machine Head before me, and it wasn't until I heard the end of the front lines. It's a track off of The More Things Change, which is Machine Head's second record, and that record really just that song. I was like, man, I'm a Machine Head fan forever.
So when I was lucky, I found this album and I got onto it I think it was one of the featured releases in Columbia House. So again, I had it just delivered to my house, and I put it in. And it's one of those I just listened to front to back. So from that point on, pretty much I was sitting on waiting for the next album to come out and just...
Oh, what a great way to end right.
Man.
Dun, 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 dun.
They always hit just right for me. I love those guys.
Yeah,
love
dude,
those guys.
Machine Head has always been cool in my book.
And Rob Flynn does do a great job. He's got his own podcast, if I remember right. And
Yeah, it's good too. I've listened to it. It's great.
he does some good stuff. And actually, so there was a CD out there called Roadrunner Unlimited.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
great.
where they brought all the super groups, so all the different bands that are
And they assigned them in
Roadrunner.
teams.
Yes.
So like Matt Heafy from Trivium had a team. And
Yes, and Rob
Rob.
actually had 2 songs on that album where he was the lead.
They're the best songs on the record.
And I mean, and
No
honestly,
offense, Matt Heafy.
that whole record is great. I mean, it's just one of those where again you can listen to the whole thing. But Rob Flynn, his participation in anything usually just turns to gold.
Well,
I
you
just
can
love his
tell.
stuff.
You can really tell the difference too. Like and I'm a huge Matt Heafy Trivium fan, and we'll get into some of that later on too.
for sure. So this last band,
What's your final track, man?
This
This is the one that really got you solidified into the death metal side.
this is what moved me into not just something that people can tolerate because it's metal. You know, they're like, oh, it's not screamo, it's loud, but okay. This is the one that made people go, is there something fucking wrong with you?
Yeah, dude.
So
I know that feeling. I've been asked that.
So there's been a few bands that I really pondered between this last spot, and it was pretty much between Cannibal Corpse, Morbid Angel, and Deicide. But I went Deicide. Trick or Betrayed. This whole album, man, it scared people.
Yeah.
You know, Glenn Benton, the bassist and the lead singer. No, you're not. Just scared people, and the cover on this album just freaked people out. And I dated a girl who was Catholic. We were together through all high school, and I made her listen to this in the car. You know, she one time made me go to a country concert, Cheyenne Frontier Days, actually twice, and I'm standing in the crowd with a Slayer shirt on, going, I do not belong here. So I'm like, look, you're gonna drag me to this hick show. I'm gonna make you listen to this. And luckily, you maybe can't understand what he's saying, but
I mean,
she picked it up.
Time to listen.
And then I think after she figured out what was being said, I think she was a little like, I don't know if I could take you back to my house anymore.
I can tell you this. When me and my guys first started getting into it was, of course, Morbid Angel, Cannibal Corpse, and Deicide.
Yeah.
Those were, and probably still are, the 3 quintessential death metal bands that really made it into a sort of a mainstream push.
Right. And I'll add my 4th, because if you talk about your big 4, I would put Obituary in there.
I definitely heard a lot about Obituary back in the day, for sure. Those 3 or 4 bands like really made a big impression on all of us.
Yeah.
We were listening to them almost constantly.
Just on repeat.
Just on repeat, man. If it wasn't Tomb of the Mutilated or Covenant,
Yeah.
or fucking Once Upon a Cross, like,
Which I think their 3rd or 4th album. It's definitely not their first one. This is their more refined. And of all of them, I was going to say that this has definitely really brought it together from a sound perspective.
and I remember I always wanted to look at, and like see what these things look like. You know what I mean? Open the album cover, and hopefully there's a picture of these people in there. Because I wanted to see who was creating this thing that I was so into.
Right.
And my first glimpse of Glenn Benton,
Then you have that cross.
big ass bass in his hand, upside down cross on his forehead, and I thought, what the hell, man?
Yeah. Dude,
And to
fast, brutal. I mean, that's kind of what I picture when you tell me what you look for in a song.
Yeah, dude.
It doesn't fuck around. It gets right to the point of be prepared to bash your face in.
This is exactly what Deicide is about.
Yeah.
And they've got other songs that are longer and do a couple other things. But if you want to hear the essence of Deicide, and even to this day, the most recent record that they've released or
singles out
that they've put out
by Idle Hands, I think is the name
are-
of the song. It's a great song.
they just, I mean, they're brutal.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so you've got to go check out Deicide if you haven't. And all of these bands, you know, a lot of these bands that we've been listening to, you know, they're from a time gone by. You know,
Yeah.
we've been listening to metal for a long time now, but that's the point, is just to get you guys in. Anybody who's listening, interested in checking out something outside of your norm.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Dude, this really brought some love to my heart today, man. Just being able to talk about my journey, hearing your viewpoint, and yeah, I mean, Metal and Mash, this is what this is about. Just hanging out with people that you like, doing things you like to do, listening to things you like to listen to, drinking what you like to
drinking
drink.
things you like to fucking drink.
And, you know, I'm way stoked to hear your story.
Yeah, dude. So stay tuned for episode 4.
Absolutely.
And then we'll take a deep dive. All right. Metal and Mash. We'll see you guys on the next episode.
Aaron, Adam, peace out.